And we're back this morning with Dr. Tim McKnight, and I don't know, did the March Madness bug grab you because you've got brackets here, fat burning zone versus high intensity interval training? Is this a first round matchup or what?
Well, I was in the first round matchup yesterday and lost. I actually took an elbow to the eye, so I got the cut and the bruise under the eye.
Between elbows and eyes, things are not going well.
Yeah, so I'm out of the bracket now.
Okay.
I was eliminated.
You were busted right away. But let's talk about that because obviously there are different levels, and what does that mean to us?
Well, I think people, when they exercise, the idea is they're burning fat, and that's true. So in the fat burning zone, that's an intensity where you're walking with a friend, you're walking briskly for most people. Now, brisk for one person looks different than another person, but it's your perception. I'm walking faster than I normally walk. And as I'm walking, I can carry on a conversation with somebody. I might be a little bit winded, but it's not uncomfortable. You're not thinking, boy, this is hard. You're just thinking, I'm in a hurry. That's the fat burning zone. And what we know about fat is it's the ideal fuel to burn for energy. We can burn glucose or sugar, but the body prefers to burn fat because there's a lot more energy in fat. And to extract that energy, you need oxygen. So when you're walking briskly, you're not so winded that you can't get enough oxygen to really burn that fat well. So that is the good news for people. If you just get out and walk briskly, and you're not winded and you're not feeling miserable, then you're burning fat. And that's pretty easy for most people to achieve. It's a great starting place. But then the next question is, well,
are you going to see that on the scale right away, though?
No, you're not going to see it because it does take a while. And exercise is not the best way to lose weight. The best way to lose weight is to cut your calories, to restrict your calories, to do intermittent fasting, or to go without food, and particularly to lower your carbohydrate intake because we've talked about this. Carbohydrates are what increase insulin that makes you make fat, increases a hormone called ghrelin, which makes you hungry. So sugars and carbs are just going to be really hard to eat if you're trying to lose weight. So the next question is, well, if I really want to increase my metabolism, how do I do that? Because people talk about that. I'm increasing my metabolism. Well, you can do that two ways. You can increase your muscle mass because muscle really likes to burn fat. The second thing you can do is increase we call them organs in the cell or organelles. Every cell has a circulatory system, a musculoskeletal system, a nervous system, and there's an organ in the cell called the mitochondria that burns fat and it burns oxygen, and it takes the energy from that food and converts it to chemical energy called ATP. Okay, so this is kind of some high school biology, but the point is, if we increase the surface area of the mitochondria in our cells, in other words, the mitochondria it's just like a bunch of membranes folded together, and if you can increase the surface area of those membranes, you can burn fat a lot more efficiently. So this is a basketball player, somebody in the NBA that eats 10,000 calories a day and never gets fat, and they have increased the mitochondrial surface area so much that they generate a lot of heat, so their hands probably aren't cold very often. I mean, they just generate heat, and their metabolic rate is really high. So the way a novice, any one of us, can do that is by exercising in the anaerobic zone, which is anaerobic means without oxygen. How do you feel when you're doing that? You feel like you're sucking when you're starving for oxygen. That's a higher level intensity. So we have these different zones is when it comes to how much the heart rate, where the heart rate should be. And I just went on Google and found this. It's pretty simple. And I typed in target heart rate zones. And what this tells you is for a given age, your range for this heart rate should be in a certain range. So if you're in the fat burning zone and you're 50 years old, that heart rate range would be 102 to 119 beats per minute. That's the pulse you should have in the fat burning zone. That's light exertional activity, not real heavy. This is based on your maximum heart rate, which is based on your age. So if you take, in this example, it's a 50-year-old. It's 220 minus your age. In this example, it's 50. So the maximum heart rate is 170. and then everything else is a percentage of that. So in the fat burning zone, it's 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. So for the 50-year-old, the anaerobic zone, where they're sucking wind and they can't get enough air to breathe, is a heart rate of 136 to 153. And then there's the very maximum, which is 100% of your heart rate, your maximum heart rate, which for this person would be 153 to 170 beats per minute. Now, I know that's a lot of math, and it's kind of hard to envision this in your mind, but the idea is you really can't catch your breath. And when you can't do that, your cells are saying, oh my gosh, I got to get more oxygen. This person is really demanding a lot of energy to work these muscles. How am I going to help them get more oxygen? I have to make more mitochondria. I have to increase that surface area. That's how we increase our metabolic rate. So two things: build muscle mass. That's in the gym lifting weights. Second thing is get in the anaerobic zone where you're out of breath. Now, if you walk in a gym, you can do an interval training. You get on a treadmill and say, I want to do interval training. And they'll start you at a slow walk and speed it up and slow it down, speed it up, speed it up, speed it up. And now you're into that zone where you really can't talk at all. I mean, you're struggling to breathe, but it's only for a short time. Then you come back down,
right.
Your heart rate recovers a little bit, and then you go back into it. So it's a cycle interval training. So I hope that makes sense. This is something that, unless you've been cleared by your primary care provider or a cardiologist, this is not something that the average person should try to do. Because some people, if they have an exercise, we don't know if they have coronary artery blockages, and you go into an exercise intensity like that, you could have a coronary event, you could have a heart attack. So you've got to be careful. But for those people that are younger and pretty active and are just trying to lose some weight, this is something you gradually put yourself into, and you gradually develop that ability to go in that intensity. So, you might start out walking, like my father-in-law. He would walk an hour a day, and after a couple of months, that got kind of easy. So instead of walking the whole hour, he would jog from one, maybe 100 yards from one light pole to the next, slow rate. Then he'd catch his breath, walk a little bit more, and then when he got his breath back, he'd just jog real light. And within a year's time, he went from no exercise to running an hour a day. Now, he was in his 60s when he started this, and he did it gradually. And then he got to the point where, like I said, he could run an hour a day. On his 70th birthday, he said, I've always wanted to run 7 miles. I think I'm going to do it today. So he ran 7 miles, and he said he could have gone further, but that was enough. But the idea is it was gradual. It wasn't pushing himself. It wasn't being miserable. It was just, I'm going to do a little bit more. And that's the key. But when you get to that place where you're exercising and you're out of breath and you can't catch your breath, that's increasing your metabolism. And that's a great way to help you lose weight.
So not to get too personal with your father-in-law, but then what were the benefits that he saw over that decade?
Well, his cholesterol came down, his blood pressure came down. He lost about 40 pounds around the belly, so the visceral fat was gone. So that's why the cholesterol improved, the blood pressure improved, the acid reflux was gone. And, at that point, he's an ideal body weight. He's got a ton of energy. And at the age of 70, 75, when he walks up a flight of steps, he takes 2 or 3 at a time. And this is somebody that I would have never expected to do this. This was not a high school athlete. This was an average Joe who worked a 9-to-5 job and just decided he was going to challenge himself. And it started out as just a time for he and my mother-in-law to have together walking, and it turned into something that for him, he enjoyed it. And it was just amazing to see this transformation. But again, the point is we do this gradually. And if you're not sure about this, if you're not sure you can handle this, you should see your primary care provider and make sure you're okay. Now, last week, I had a stress test done on myself because I was a little scared. I'd taken a month off of basketball, and I hadn't done any cardiovascular exercise. And I went to the gym, and I was extremely winded. And I knew that within 4 weeks, about 50% of the aerobic capacity you develop is gone. So I didn't expect to have as much wind as I did the month prior, but I didn't expect it to be that bad. And with the family history of heart disease, I got on a treadmill and I challenged myself. And when they do the treadmill stress test, they're trying to get you up to that point where you can't catch your breath. And then they're watching for signs on the EKG and signs in an imaging study that often follow that to see if the circulation is impaired in the heart. But I did well. I was able to get up to my maximum heart rate, which for me was about 160, and I maintained that for 3 or 4 minutes, and then the recovery was really good. So that was a reassuring stress test. Same kind of concept. Let's push the body as far as it can go and see if the heart can tolerate that. And on a stress test, it's not just getting your heart rate there. It's seeing how fast it can recover to slow the heart rate down. Because if you think of that, if there's blood going through the heart, but it's impaired because things are blocked, it takes a long time to recover and get that heart rate back to your baseline. So that's a key indicator also that things are looking good from a heart standpoint. But again, hopefully the fat burning zone makes sense, and the anaerobic zone means without oxygen. Now there's one zone in between called the aerobic zone, which is sort of the transition. So in the aerobic zone, if you're on a treadmill, you might be at an incline and walking fast, and you're able to talk, but it's very choppy because you're thinking more about breathing, and you can't complete a full sentence. But when you go up to that higher level and you're in the anaerobic zone, that's exactly how you feel. You can't get enough oxygen.
Yeah.
And of course, people that train for this, it's not a big deal. If you've watched the Olympics or these elite athletes, say in the 400 meter, the one lap around the track, that's probably one of the most difficult mental events in track and field, because it's an all-out sprint for 400 yards. And if you've ever done that, you know how hard that is. And I do that, and it takes me 5 minutes to catch my breath. Mm-hmm. When they do that, wow, they're being interviewed on TV 60 seconds later.
Hands on hips.
Yeah, and they don't even look winded. It's because they've developed that anaerobic capacity. Those mitochondria just help them recover quickly. So recovery, again, is a good indicator that your heart health is good. But one of the other take-home messages here is, if you have an option to lose weight, and your option is I'm going to eat less or I'm going to exercise more, eat less is always much, much, much more effective than exercising more. You can exercise yourself. You can exercise some of the fat off, but it's not likely going to sustain if you're not spending 2 or 3 hours a day doing that.
Yeah. All right. Well, good stuff. Thank you so much. And now we know who's winning the bracket.
Good. I'm glad that helps.
Dr. Tim McKnight this morning as we talk with the doc.